this week.
And a major medical group has just come out against gender-affirming care for minors. Could this guidance impact midterm races as the far left still tries to defend the policy? You're watching Fox and Friends First here on a Wednesday morning. I'm Todd Pyro.
And I'm Carly Shimkus. All of that and more coming up. But we start this morning with the very latest on the search for Nancy Guthrie.
Tonight, a candlelight prayer service is being held for the missing 84-year-old as the search to find her enters a fourth day. Police working through the new DNA evidence they have acquired. Brand new 911 calls, meantime, reveal the medical conditions that are putting Nancy Guthrie's health at risk. Listen.
We reference Nancy, a white female, 84 years of age, 5'2" medium build, brown blue, bleeding after 2,200 hours as of yesterday. Nancy has high blood pressure, pacemaker, and cardiac issues.
A possible ransom note was reportedly sent to media outlets demanding millions of dollars in Bitcoin, but police have not yet confirmed its authenticity, saying we are aware of reports circulating about a possible ransom note related to the investigation into Nancy Guthrie. All tips and leads are being taken seriously and are forwarded directly to our detectives, who are coordinating with the FBI. But police are also struggling to answer other questions about this investigation.
Do you have any idea what Nancy Guthrie was wearing or the type of car that she might have left from, or any identifiable information that the public could use to help with those tips?
We do not.
Sheriff, do you believe that one or more than one person was involved in the kidnapping?
I just no clue. It could have been one, it could have been more.
For someone that is still alive.
We hope we are. We hope we are.
A former ATF special agent in charge, Bernard Zapor, joins us now. And Bernard, let's pick it up on the ransom note. How will authorities figure out whether this ransom note is real or not?
Well, number one, in fact, if there is in fact a ransom note, because part of the difficulty with an investigation has this scale of notoriety because it's related to a celebrity's family member, is that they're getting so many tips. And they're getting them online, they're getting them through social media, they're getting so many things that have to be followed up on. They're leaning probably into advanced case management, AI case management, to go through the tips and find commonalities so they're not burning up investigating time on the wrong things. In terms of anything that comes in, something as specific as a ransom note, it's going to have a tell in it that has to match what happened at the scene. And it would have to reveal things pretty readily that only somebody that was on site would know about, or something about the potential victim.
The ransom note, apparently, according to DMC, did have details about what Nancy Guthrie was wearing and other identifiable information, including a deadline as to when they apparently want this Bitcoin to be sent to them. Do you believe, given that reporting, that this ransom note is authentic?
They will treat it as it is, and they have to run it down for every possibility. They will have the ability to have things in there that give them some type of determination, particularly as they're exploiting more information, including video captures and a number of other technologies out there that will show this. You know, kidnaps in the United States, non-domestic kidnappings are statistically very rare. And so this will always get a tremendous amount of investigative attention. The Sheriff's Department is partnering with their local law enforcement and the FBI. And again, they're processing a lot of information. Kidnapping notes are a great piece of evidence if they in fact lead them to more possibilities, for sure.
I want to focus now on the technology aspect of all this, and our own Alicia Acuna gives us a good jumping off point. She did a tour of Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood. Here's what she found.
It's really difficult just from the perspective of driving down the street to see into where these homes are. So then you keep in mind that investigators have collected some of the door cam videos from the neighbors, and you've got to wonder exactly what they can see, because a lot of homes, this is Nancy Guthrie's home, are set back away, and there's a lot of stuff, you know, beautiful trees and cactus, they're in front of them, but from an investigative standpoint, that can create some challenges.
Okay, Bernard, so Alicia focuses on the door cams. Is there any other technology that we should be focused on? The one thing that jumped out to me is the pacemaker. Is there any way to track where that pacemaker is to locate her?
Yes, very often. Things like medical devices have telemetry in them that are often that send signals to monitoring centers. They send alerts for irregularities, and that is very common in contemporary medical devices like that. Additionally, we have to think beyond or just realize that in our society today, there's so much video evidence or video information being captured from people that are hobbyists or that will keep dash cams on their own vehicle to prevent lawsuits of car accidents. So there's a lot of things besides door cam in terms of video that are a possibility in tracking the movement of somebody that would have been removed forcefully or anything that happened coming in and out of that neighborhood, because they have a time frame and they will narrow the time frame down. And as these tips come forward, there might be people that possess video evidence or other technical evidence that is of great value.
Yeah. There were also droplets of blood reportedly found at Nancy Guthrie's home, and that blood sample is currently being tested. How long till we find out who it belongs to?
I think they have a pretty good idea. The first thing is they'll be able to do is eliminate anybody that comes in and out of that house on a normal basis, whether they're somebody who does landscaping or her herself. And that's their first primary thing, is to determine if they know whose blood it is, and it's somebody related that would be normally at that house. I mean, unclean blood would be unusual. Also, to find out if it's human, they're going to know that right away. If they determine they have blood there that it's not related to anybody that would be in the normal course of this family's life in that house, then they're going through all the indices of existing DNA that's out there. And, DNA is collected at a much larger scale in contemporary times, because people that are arrested, DNA is taken. There are DNA that is voluntarily submitted for people that are looking for heredity and family ties. And so there's a lot of DNA that can possibly be checked. The first thing, though, is to make sure they want to determine if they have human DNA and if it is somebody that doesn't belong in the house.
Understood. Well, when asked if investigators are still looking for someone who is still alive, Sheriff Nanos yesterday said, "We hope we are." And I think we all echo that sentiment. Absolutely. Former ATF Special Agent in Charge, Bernard Zaper, we thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, switching gears to this, another round of snow is on its way. We are live on the ground where residents need to brace for the next winter weather.
That eye roll was not directed at you, Carly. You're just the messenger. And today we're going to hear from leaders of the biggest self-driving car companies on Capitol Hill. Cheryl Casoni previews how competition with China and questions over safety are going to be the focus. We are back with a Fox News alert. Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell checking himself into the hospital after experiencing flu-like symptoms. His office says he made the move Monday, quote, out of an abundance of caution, writing, quote, his prognosis is positive and he is grateful for the excellent care he is receiving. He is in regular contact with his staff and looks forward to returning to Senate business. The 83-year-old missed Senate votes on both Monday and Tuesday. McConnell had announced last year he would not be seeking re-election, ending his long tenure in the Senate.
Listen to this. The American Society of Plastic Surgeons is now recommending any gender-affirming surgeries be delayed for anyone until they reach 19 years old. They are now the first major medical association to give guidance against procedures for minors in the U.S. Joining me now is political strategist Katie Zachariah. Katie, good morning to you. So this group, which represents more than 11,000 physicians worldwide, found evidence suggesting that a substantial portion of children with prepubescent onset gender dysmorphia experience resolution or significant reduction of distress by the time they reach adulthood, absent medical or surgical intervention. In other words, they found that children who believe that they're transgender, oftentimes by the time they reach adulthood, 19 years old, feel like that is no longer the case, that they are the gender that they were born into. So they are now, for the very first time, recommending against surgeries. What do you think about this?
This is historic and absolutely in line with what we've always known, that these procedures were never safe for kids and should have never been done to kids. These doctors likely knew better. And this comes, Carly, on top of the lawsuit, the $2 million lawsuit for medical malpractice that was just won in White Plains, New York, for a detransitioner who had a double mastectomy and then won against the doctors. And I think what they see clearly is that this trend is going to start happening nationwide, that people will start suing for malpractice for and lack of consent because they were underage when these types of irreversible procedures were performed on these poor kids.
Yeah, and that lawsuit, of course, won in Deep Blue, New York, as you mentioned. So that was the first of its kind lawsuit, but it may not be the last. And there is a political element to this, and California Governor Gavin Newsom entered into it with conservative commentator Ben Shapiro on Ben's podcast recently. Take a listen to how that conversation went.
Why is this a hard one? I just don't understand.
Because I don't know why it's such a. Why is it such a? I'm curious. I understand the political potency of it.
It's not just politically potent,
but it just how it's so few. We're talking about so few people.
It's not about the
that are struggling with gender identity issues. A lot of remarkable people, a lot of wildly successful people, and they've gone on their life, have incredible lives. I don't know. There's so much hate and bigotry, so much condemnation, so much judgment.
What do you make of that argument, Katie, about there being so much hate and bigotry in this discussion? Do you believe that to be true?
No, this is clearly a war against our children. And there is no hate and bigotry when you're protecting children from making irreversible decisions that will drastically affect the rest of their life. For instance, a young girl like Chloe Cole, who had a double mastectomy and then came to realize at 16 that she wouldn't be able to breastfeed if she ever wanted to get pregnant and have children. And this is the type of stuff that this isn't bigotry, this isn't hatred, this is protecting children. And Gavin Newsom, he signed Senate Bill 107, which makes California a sanctuary state for transitioners, for kids that want to undergo gender transition therapies and surgeries. And just the juxtaposition, Carly, of President Trump, who signed the executive order on protecting children from mutilation and surgical intervention for this type of stuff. It's such a stark contrast. And the war on kids is real. And Gavin Newsom is at the forefront of that war, and President Trump is protecting those children.
Yeah, and California public schools are generally not required, and it's often prohibited from telling parents if their children request a different pronoun or name to be used in school. And they pass that under something called the Safety Act. So they say it's safe. I don't know what child is being kept safe if their parents are left in the dark, but that currently is the law on the books in the state of California. Katie, thank you so much for joining us this morning to talk about this. We appreciate it. All right, switching gears to this, more snow is on the way for the mid-Atlantic, if you can believe it, with Americans across the country still trying to recover after that deadly winter storm a few weeks ago.
Right now, thousands of residents in Ohio are bracing for another round of snow with winter weather alerts already in place. Fox weather correspondent Katie Byrne live in Covington, Kentucky with the latest. Hey, Katie.
Good morning, Carly and Tadia. We've got a beautiful view of Cincinnati across the river. They picked up more than 2 inches of snow already from this one, which brings them even further past the average total for the entire winter season. And this is a city that could see snow all the way into April. So winter's not over yet, though many people I've met out here are hoping the end is in sight.
Gloomy, reminds me of Cleveland. Cold, gray, depressing, ready for the snow to go away.
It's been terrible. Freezing cold, weather has been gloomy, snow all the time, ice everywhere. I can't wait for spring.
These plow crews have had little to no rest. They're working 12-hour shifts today, in addition to yesterday with this storm, and they did the same with that last major storm that impacted much of the country. That one kept them out plowing for about a week straight. And they say that the frigid temperatures have been the biggest challenge with this. We've had that limiting the melting of the storm. Snow that's left over, you could see about 40% of the country still covered in snow. In some cases, as forecasters now eye this next system, which is looking like a clipper for the Northeast. Snow totals should stay low, but that's set to bring another round of bitter cold air, unfortunately. guys.
Katie Byrne with the truth. Thanks, Katie. Appreciate it.
But we love you, Katie.
And we also
Not
love
what?
Britta Merwin, meteorologist, with more truth in our Fox weather forecast. What are we getting? Who's getting it? When are we getting it?
The big deal is really the cold, as Katie said. Yes, we're going to get some snow, but these fast-moving weather systems, they often unlock that Arctic air. And I think all of us can agree, you can keep the Arctic air. We've had plenty of it, but unfortunately, it's going to continue. The long-range forecast showing it at play all the way through the end of February. So here's a look at our morning start. 18 degrees in Chicago and Cleveland. So the snow that's on the ground, it's not going anywhere. It hasn't been going anywhere. So we have these big snow piles. This afternoon, we do get above freezing in many spots. Just at the freezing mark for New York, Kansas City 37. Notice that the West is a completely different story. I mean, we have winter for the eastern two-thirds of our country. Out to the west, very mild. We're expecting mid-80s today across the desert Southwest. Here's the next snowmaker for the eastern two-thirds of our country. The Great Lakes, the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic going to get clipped by a fast-moving cold front. It just brings in a dusting of snow. The big deal is the cold air behind it, but we do have that potential of a couple inches. The big winners will be the mountains in West Virginia, so good news for local ski resorts there. Here is the headline. This weekend, Arctic air, it comes back into play. It comes in with a lot of wind, so unfortunately, it is going to be brutally cold across the Great Lakes in the Northeast for our Super Bowl weekend. On Saturday, we're looking at wind chills that are very low, feeling like -10 along the 95 corridor, -24 off the shores of Lake Ontario. If you thought that was bad enough, wait until Super Bowl Sunday. Todd, Carly, hopefully you guys have indoor plans for Super Bowl Sunday, I would assume.
Yeah.
I mean, that's brutal.
We're not crazy.
Nobody's going to play their own football game
Speak
out
for
in the
yourself.
backyard.
I traditionally watch the Super Bowl in an igloo I built in my backyard. So I don't know about you guys.
You and Elsa, right?
But, I mean, we
I know
got
you guys are tight.
Elsa,
so.
Anna, Christoph, Sven, we got the whole gang.
Some ingenuity getting
And-
electricity in
and
that
Olaf.
thing,
Well,
but
Olaf
Todd's
helps.
on it. Britta, thank you so
you,
much
Britta.
for that snowy forecast. All right, they say every dog has its day, and that was certainly the case yesterday at the Westminster Dog Show, because the Best in Show has officially been crowned.
I didn't know if you wanted me to start singing Dave Matthews songs. Every dog has its day. Okay, I'll stop. You gave me a look. Focusing on the story again, we'll tell you which canine reigns supreme.
Woo!
Fox and Friends first rolls along. Tensions high in the Middle East after the U.S. shoots down an Iranian drone approaching an aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea. Just hours later, the Pentagon says Iranian armed boats threatened a U.S. tanker, but thankfully, U.S. air defenses were able to de-escalate the situation.
And all of this comes just days before planned nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran. Lucas Tomlinson joins us live in Washington with all the details. Hi, Lucas.
Well, good early morning, Carly and Todd. It's the first air-to-air kill for the Navy's F-35C, launched from the aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln in order to shoot down that Iranian drone flying too close to the strike group in the Arabian Sea. In the past, Iran has used drone footage of U.S. Navy ships for propaganda purposes. The incident took place, as you mentioned, hours after Iranian gunboats harassed a U.S. oil tanker transiting the Strait of Hormuz. A pair of Vipers, U.S. Air Force F-16s, along with the guided missile destroyer USS McFall, escorted the tanker out of harm's way. Despite the incidents, President Trump says talks will continue with Iran.
They are negotiating. They'd like to do something, and we'll see if something is going to be done. They had a chance to do something a while ago, and it didn't work out, and we did Midnight Hammer. I don't think they want that happening again, but they would like to negotiate. We are negotiating with them right now, yes.
A spokesman for the U.S. Military Central Command says an F-35 Charlie fighter jet from Abraham Lincoln shot down an Iranian drone in self-defense and to protect the aircraft carrier and personnel on board. No American service members were harmed during the incident, and no U.S. equipment was damaged. Continued Iranian harassment and threats in international waters and airspace will not be tolerated. Now, some think the Iranians only want to focus on the nuclear issue and not discuss ballistic missiles or proxies. That's why Iran is now saying they only want to talk with the U.S. and not in Turkey, but Oman. Trump's former Secretary of State and CIA Director Mike Pompeo told an Israeli news outlet there's no chance for a deal with Iran. Carly, Todd?
All right, Lucas Tomlinson live for us in Washington. Lucas, thank you. Let's bring in former NSC Chief of Staff under President Trump, Alex Gray. Alex, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. So what do you make of this military move against the United States by Iran, and will this impact negotiations?
Well, thanks, Carly. I do think that the Iranians are doing their normal playbook, right? Which is say they want to have negotiations, do everything possible to obfuscate and to avoid making real concessions. Like Lucas just said, they've already made clear they're not going to compromise on missiles. They're not going to compromise on terrorist proxies. The things that most concern our core U.S. interests in the region. I think what's clear is the Iranians are going to continue to be bad actors. The regime has very little interest in compromise. And President Trump has put the U.S. in a great position to give us leverage, whatever happens in the negotiations, to put forward our core interests in the region, which, like I said, Carly, are stopping the missile program, stopping the nuclear program, and keeping the proxies from reconstituting.
Yeah, so do you believe that if these negotiations go nowhere, that the only other course of action would be military action? And if so, what would the best course be to take?
So I think that the president, in my view, is likely going to have to do something military, but it doesn't necessarily mean regime change. You know, there's been no American president and really no American leader of the last generation who's been more ahead of his time on the dangers of regime change. But President Trump understands that the biggest tool an American president has is their credibility. And we have to maintain our credibility for deterrence, not just here, but globally. Everything we do everywhere is watched by China, by Russia, by others. So the president is going to have to make a decision soon about whether we're going to have to target Iranian energy platforms, Iranian naval vessels, Iranian IRGC targets. There's a lot he can do short of regime change that will keep his deterrence options and will show American credibility.
Yeah, you know, Alex, there are also reports that Iran is at its weakest position since the 1979 Iranian Revolution, and not just Iran itself, its proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah. So there are those who look at that and think that there could be no better time than now for regime change. What do you think about that logic?
Look, I think that the Iranian regime is very weak. It's certainly weaker than a lot of our Obama administration friends certainly have been pushing for the last 15 years, that Iran is some sort of global power. That's obviously nonsense. But the reality is the United States has other interests outside of getting involved in another complicated Middle Eastern regime change. And so I would say, you know, our biggest interests right now are maintaining stability in Asia, particularly with China, and our hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere. Think Greenland, think Panama, think Cuba, think narco trafficking, Venezuela. All the areas where the president has had such extraordinary success in just the last month, I think those are much larger American interests than getting involved in another significant regime change effort.
Understood. Well, it is a debate that we're having on TV, and certainly a lot of consideration to be made at the White House as well. Former NSC Chief of Staff under President Trump, Alex Gray, we thank you for your time and your expertise and insight, as always.
Thanks, Carly.
All right, Todd, over to you.
Carly, alleged Charlie Kirk assassin Tyler Robinson was back in court, where his defense team again asked prosecutors be removed from the case because one prosecutor's child was at the event where Kirk was killed. The judge set to make a decision on that on February 24th, but in the meantime, the judge did impose additional limits on the media, deciding to move all cameras to the back of the courtroom. Former federal prosecutor Andrew Cherkasky joins me now. Andrew, let's start with the removal of the prosecutors. Did you hear anything in yesterday's hearing that leads you to believe that this judge will kick off the entire Utah County Attorney's Office off this case?
I don't think that the entire team is going to be kicked off, but there is a concern about the one prosecutor who has a child, a daughter who is at the event. You have to remember that early in a stage of a prosecution like this, that sort of conflict may seem like a minor thing, but in the end, you have to imagine that the prosecutors are going to be the ones who are giving the closing arguments, and it's going to be an impassioned closing argument, and it could be the thing that causes him to be convicted or given a death penalty. One of the most often reasons why death penalty cases are overturned are because prosecutors put too much into the case. They inflamed the passions of the jury. And so if you start now with a prosecutor who already has a bias potential situation, and that prosecutor ends up going all the way through the end of this case, appellate courts later on could look and point at that and say that's the reason why this was an unfair trial. He was too close to the matter. He inflamed the passions of the jury. Those are the sorts of mistakes that we want to make sure as this trial goes forward, a conviction is gained and perhaps the death penalty had, if that's what happens here, you want to make sure that that is preserved for appeal purposes.
If it's going to be anything, it's going to be what you just said. It's not going to be the fact that this woman, this young child, or this child, I should say, is going to be a witness in the case, because there were thousands of other witnesses. You don't need to pick that one and put her on the stand. Meantime, there is the issue of cameras in the courtroom. In a fight to keep cameras and microphones in and on the courtroom, Erica Kirk's attorney is writing the following: in the absence of transparency, speculation, misinformation, and conspiracy theories are likely to proliferate, eroding public confidence in the judicial process. Did the judge make the right call when it comes to media access, specifically this move of the cameras to the back of the courtroom?
This judge has been pretty conservative in allowing cameras in and access for the media compared to some other cases where there's far more information given. Many states, the use of cameras in courtrooms can be a function of whether both parties agree to the cameras and the setups of the cameras. And so if there's contention in many states, you see judges take these measures where cameras and media are not given as much access. I think that it's tremendously harmful to our justice system. I think cameras in the courtroom, as much transparency as possible throughout the entire process, is the best way for us to have public trials. Having people just kind of hoard into these courtrooms who have specific interests, and then reporting that comes from that without people actually being able to witness what's happening. And particularly in a case like this that has had so many kind of conspiracy theories going on around it, or at least evidence and pieces of it that don't have all of the answers to all of the questions that are out there. Absent those cameras giving us that access, I think we're going to continue to have issues from a public perspective, just understanding everything that's happening behind this.
Yeah, but it really does seem every decision that this judge is making, including his painstaking approach to said decisions, is all about making sure that there's nothing on appeal that they can reverse him on. Switching to a different case happening today, Ryan Ruth, convicted on charges related to his attempted assassination of President Trump, is going to be sentenced. Andrew, what should that sentence be?
Well, it looks like it should be life in this case. You know, I think that it's particularly ironic. We talked about this, I believe, a month or so ago, talking about the fact that he's representing himself. And now he has a defense attorney at his sentencing portion of this hearing arguing that him representing himself should be used as evidence that lowers his overall time in jail, that he didn't get as fair of a defense as if he had had a lawyer. And I think that's the sort of ridiculous types of outcomes that Mr. Ruth perhaps has been trying to bring about this whole time. He does not seem entirely connected to Earth, saying that he wants President Trump to maybe sentence him. There's lots of these little details out there. This is a person who has proven himself a particularly dangerous person in society. He still doesn't seem to have it kind of all together in terms of mentally. And so I think life behind bars is exactly where this individual belongs.
In the legal system, stupidity does not lead to shorter sentences. That's just not something that happens. Andrew Cherkasky, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
A really concerning story here. Two girls thankfully safe after being allegedly kidnapped by a man they met on the online gaming platform Roblox.
The sheriff who worked that case is here with an urgent warning to parents. Next. The road to success for self-driving cars runs through Capitol Hill. Executives from some of the top automated car companies are set to testify before Senate later this morning as safety remains a top concern.
As it should be. Fox Business host Cheryl Casoni here with more. Hey, Cheryl.
Good morning. This is Senator Ted Cruz. This is his committee. He's been a vocal advocate for let's craft true regulation so that the industry of self-driving vehicles can know exactly what their roadmap is, pun intended. So we have just obtained here at Fox a piece of Waymo Chief Safety Officer Mauricio Pena's written testimony for the hearing that gets underway at Senate Commerce at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Here's what he says. We believe Congress has a once-in-a-generation opportunity to secure American leadership in this industry by creating a national AV legislative framework that sets a high safety standard for the industry. Greater certainty will unlock even more investment and prevent bad actors from undermining public trust in this novel, life-changing technology. The bad actors, that would be the Chinese. And that is what these executives from both Tesla and Waymo, which by the way is owned by Google Alphabet, if you will, they're very adamant that you can't have patchwork regulations state to state, right guys? So the only places that Waymo's really operating truly right now, Austin, San Francisco, Phoenix. There's been some problems. In San Francisco, there was a major power outage, and all of those Waymos just froze on the streets. And the YouTube videos, and of course, people were upset. But, you know, you have to look at the fact that there has been some serious question marks, especially there's a big uproar in Austin, Texas about school buses because the Waymos are blowing past the school buses when they're loading and unloading the kids. And I will say in Santa Monica, a child was hit at morning drop-off. That was January 23rd. That just happened. Maybe y'all reported it. And that's under investigation. The situation in Austin is under investigation.
You know, I think this is interesting, Cheryl, because there was also the situation where a Waymo in San Francisco drove through an active police scene. Like the suspected felon was laying on the ground about to get cuffed, and then you see this Waymo just, you know, inch on by. So you have to wonder, in those instances that are so obvious to the public, like if there was an actual human behind this car, this would never happen. How regulation would solve those problems?
So I think they want the they're more about the technology. They want to obviously safety first, but they're more about the development of the technology. We don't want the Chinese to it's coming. Self-driving vehicles are happening. Tesla, Waymo, and et cetera. So it's going to be global. Do you want to get left behind? We talk about this with AI, right, guys? But I will say really quick, I've looked at some of the early statements coming and what we're going to expect to hear from these executives today. They're basically going to be very clear. They're going to give specific instances where Waymos, yes, there was an incident, but if it would have been a human driver, the outcome would have been worse. But human error.
Stopping for a school bus should be like the first safety feature in the Waymos. I don't know why it's not.
I totally agree.
Don't miss Cheryl on Mornings with Maria. Thank you.
Cheryl.
All right.
You're the best,
guys.
Listen to this. A pair of 12 and 15-year-old Florida sisters back home safe after they left home to meet a 19-year-old man. The Martin County Sheriff's Office says the three had communicated for months, beginning on the online gaming platform Roblox before moving over to Snapchat. The man even ordered girls food deliveries before he drove 23 hours from Nebraska to meet them. However, the girls were intercepted in Georgia by a family member and were unharmed. That suspect now facing 2 counts of kidnapping. John Budenseek is the Martin County, Florida sheriff who worked this case, joins me now. Sheriff, what leads you to believe that, in your words, authorities, quote, prevented something disastrous from happening to these 2 girls?
Well, Todd, there's nothing good that's going to come out of a 19-year-old driving all the way from Omaha, Nebraska to Florida, 1,500 miles, picking up 2 little girls and taking them back to wherever he was going to take them back to. Nothing good was going to come out of that.
I think we could all agree that that is a logical conclusion. I have to read these statements from the 2 social media companies. Roblox providing this statement, quote, they are long, so bear with me. We are investigating this deeply troubling incident and will fully support law enforcement. Roblox has robust safety policies to protect users that go beyond many other platforms and advanced safeguards that monitor for harmful content and communications. We have filters designed to block the sharing of personal information, don't allow user-to-user image or video sharing, and recently rolled out age checks globally to limit kids and teens to chatting with others their age by default. While no system is perfect, our commitment to safety never ends, and we continue to strengthen protections to keep users safe. Snapchat issuing a similar statement. While no single safety feature or policy can eliminate every potential threat online or in the world around us, we continuously adapt our strategies as criminals evolve their tactics. We've built safeguards, launched safety tutorials, partnered with experts, and continue to invest in features and tools that support the safety, privacy, and well-being of all Snapchatters. But Sheriff, this 19-year-old did not use some CIA-level, Mission Impossible-level computer skills to communicate with these girls. He was simply able to go on these platforms and communicate with them. So can parents, despite these statements, actually trust these platforms to protect their kids?
They absolutely cannot. You know, in this scenario, it was relatively benign information at first. It was just 2 people chatting, and then it went from the Roblox platform over to Snapchat. And then we do believe now that there were some inappropriate photos that were sent. We know there was a lot of communication. In fact, that communication with vigilant family members was shut down in the middle of the summer, and unbeknownst to the family, that communication started again, and then it ended this last Saturday night with those girls getting picked up. And had we not found them, we would be doing a nationwide search right now for two little girls that would be in Omaha, and we would likely never find them.
A quick answer here. Should parents simply ban their kids from apps like this if the law won't do it for them?
Parents need to be careful with any social media platform where you can communicate. Banning, no, but stay on top of anything that your kids are on.
I run the law in the Pyro household. My girls ain't getting on any of these platforms anytime soon. Sheriff John Budensee, thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it. Now let's send it over to Brian Kilmeade with a look at what is coming up on Fox and Friends.
Just turn it over just for a couple of minutes. Big show coming up your way. The frantic search for the mom of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie has now entered its 4th day as officials rush to find the 84-year-old before it's too late. She's got some medical issues. We're going to bring you the details, including something involving one of her family members. Also, the House passes and the president signs a $1 trillion funding bill to end the partial government shutdown. Are we just 2 weeks away from another one? Meanwhile, Iran is testing their limits with the U.S. They sent a drone after us yesterday. They tried to take one of our tankers. It didn't work out well for them. Are they creating conditions for a war, or are they creating conditions for a nuclear deal? Plus, one of our favorite old-time people, Timothy Cardinal Dolan, joins us live in studio for a historic occasion. He passes the baton as Archbishop onto his successor. His last day, he's going to reflect on that with us. Also, a fun ending to the show. The winner of the 150th Westminster Best in Show, Penny the Doberman Pinscher, will be here, along with the other 149 winners. They will salute her. They'll have their crowns. More of that coming up on the top of the hour. Look at our logo.